I'd want to start by saying that if a lot of people are surprised, so was my own family, for instance, sisters and brothers, who had no idea that I was thinking this, because I want to make it clear that this isn't something that had been brewing for a very, very long time. I mean, I suppose the inward feelings and motivations had been there, but I hadn't recognized them as a kind of this may be you're thinking about kind of an experience, you know?
Right.
And that it really was triggered off when I went to Brown War Watch talk by a young grad student named Matt Ritchie about the Yemen war situation. And following the speech, there was a fairly open, vigorous conversation among the people who were there visiting. And the topic came up that comes up all the time in peace group work. I mean, I belong to so many groups, and they're small, and they feel bad about being small, and they make actions, and very few people show up, and they feel bad about the small number of people who show up. Then they feel bad because the people who do show up are the other guys from the other peace groups.
Right.
The people that you all know already agree with your positions on war and peace and weapons and collateral damage of innocent civilians and all these kinds of things. So the topic turned toward the desperate need people in the peace movement feel for reaching a wider audience, for sharing our ideas with people who don't ordinarily hear us, who don't hear our appeals, who don't read the notices of our events. And in the mix of conversation, the idea came up that, what we really need is something that's so unusual, something that's so spectacular that it will draw public opinion, and therefore we'll get a chance to put our position to a larger group. So in a way, this candidacy of this 80-year-old lady is part of that idea behind. Okay, so somebody, let's take this lovely young man, Jonathan Pressman, who had already put his candidacy in. I mean, I read it, and my first reaction, by the way, the decision had already been made that I was going to go in. Well, when I read it, I thought to myself, why am I going in? This statement is practically what I write myself.
Yeah.
If I'm writing it, there's not anything here that I can call into question. But from advice I got from people I talked to, the reaction was, that's a lovely young man, but he's not going to pull the attention the way that you might. He doesn't know as many people. He's, there's nothing extremely unusual about him that would call call for the attention. So anyway, that happened. That conversation happened. I'm talking about the one with Matt Ritchie and the crowd who had come to his talk at Brown. So we all moved out of the classroom and into the hall, and then how it is, the less interested people move away or they have other commitments, and the little hardcore of 5 to 8 people stay there and chew. Okay, that happened, and that I never thought about myself in that role. We were just talking about doing something that would, not even a candidate, just something that would call attention to the anti-war position. And now I think it was just after that, it was on the weekend after that I woke up on a Saturday morning down there in Hopkinton, where I live, far away from all the spheres of human activity, and I saw announcements that Sheldon Whitehouse was going to be at the Calabrese Club in Westerly for a town hall.
Right.
Not the usual kind of hall with the town hall, I think, where the senator sets it up and has questions. This, I think he was there at the invitation of the Democratic Town Committee to give this talk. And I didn't even know where the Calabrese Club was for sure. I had an idea. And when I saw the street address, I knew it. So I went down to the club. I got there a little bit late. I entered in the back, and I would guess there were 40, 50 people there. The little seating they had arranged was nearly full. And I got there in time to hear the talk. I don't think there was a long speech. There was more question and answer.
Right.
So the questions came back and forth, back and forth. Just as I was sitting there, I began to say, I've come, I have to ask something. And I'm going to ask the two hottest topics that at that time were on my mind. This must have been just at the end of April, the beginning of May. And the topics were the fact that there'd been the vote on the military, on the budget.
Right.
And that after fretting about 649 billion, and more or less agreeing to it, somebody came up with a brilliant idea of adding another 69 or 70 billion dollars, and the next thing you know, it's passing, and the Democrats, including White House, are voting for this exorbitant military, which, I mean, when you give more than the Pentagon asks, I'd like to know what is the media at the time was the question about Yemen. Now, I've been on this Yemen kick for a long time, and it was an uphill battle because if you brought it up to anybody outside of the peace circles and the social justice circles, they didn't know what you were talking about.
Right. Most people don't seem to even know that we're at war in Yemen, or proxy war, or whatever kind of war you want to call it.
Indirect war.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, that's we're talking April, May of 2018, and I remember already that in 2016 at Christmas time, I put a piece, I shared a piece from some of the source, I can't remember now where it was, with a picture of an emaciated Yemeni child,
Right.
and underneath the poster thing there, I wrote, I have my birthday in December, and I have Christmas in December. If any of you ever thought of getting me a present for either my birthday or Christmas, please send it to Dr. Snowboards for use in the Yemeni situation. And I got the most touching responses from people. Now I'm talking mostly about my nephews and nieces, my brothers and sisters, my cousins who might send me a card or make a small gift, and all of them felt terrible. They were glad to do something. I exceeded the little quota that you set that you're hoping to reach on the thing, but most of all, it was the reaction of people. My God, what's going on? How can this be? And I thought, my question is, how can it be that you don't know? How can it be? And that was Christmas of 2016. Now I have people who last Christmas 2017, did it again, without my putting a formal request in, but who gave me that for my Christmas present. So to me it was such an example of, I know this, the vast majority of people, and I come from, or I live in a family that's had all the breaks that immigration was supposed to bring to the incomers. My parents didn't get a lot of education, but in my generation, you could go to college if you wanted to, and among my nephews and nieces, there's lots of graduate degrees and all that kind of stuff, and they did not know that was happening in Yemen. So I wanted to ask White House why he voted. It took 10, I think I have the numbers right, it took 10 Democratic votes to fail the amendment that Ron Paul and Senator Lee and Senator Murphy, I think it was, had put in to put a hold. It wasn't saying repeal the authorization for the use of military force. It was saying let's study whether that we should not cancel that authorization and rethink how we should authorize. Try to meet the need that supposedly it was written in 2000, whenever it was, 2003 or something like that, to meet. And so they had to get 10 Democratic votes to fail this bill, this proposal, and Reid and White House were among them. So I wanted them to give an accounting why he had done that. What led you to do such a thing? To merely question the appropriateness of that.
Under basically a Trump administration too. Theoretically, he's at odds with Trump.
Well, exactly. Why would 10 Democrats go there, and why are you one of them? That's, I guess, was the kind of thing I wanted to ask. So I did get a chance to get the floor, and I did ask the question. And yes, he gives answers, but when he gives the answer, it sounds as if, and I can't blame him. I'm sure I'll find the same thing is true after being asked the same questions 20 or 30 times. But it sounds as if you're reading the script. So that the script for the first question was, it was the Republicans' fault. They made us do it. In other words, they threatened that if we didn't pass this $70 billion, raise in the budget to this other number of 716 or something, they'd cut things out of the domestic budget, and in order to save the domestic budget, in order to save for us, we had to go along. It's compromise. He almost makes it sound like a virtue that people are always talking about the necessity to compromise. So you cast it in the light of a virtue. We managed a compromise, but it didn't really answer the question of, could you challenge that compromise? Why couldn't you say we won't go for it? Now deal with the problem of the budget, you know what I mean? They wouldn't be able to pass that military without the domestic. There's no challenge. There's no, it sounds as if Chuck Schumer writes out a response in case I ever ask this question. And hands it home, and the people get ready. And then the question that I think I brought up that night at Matt Ritchie's talk was this. it's, I don't believe we have just 10 Democrats who cave. What I suspect happens is that they know it's going to alienate those Democratic senators' constituencies, so they divide up the duty work.
Yeah.
They say, all right, it's your turn, Rhode Island, in you go. The next time it'll be 10 more,
Right.
and the next time.
They pick states based on how safe they are. They think, okay, White House, Reed, you're very safe.
That's right.
Very blue state. You're not going to lose. So you
step
can do
up.
these unpopular things.
Well, this is what it sounds like to me. And
Right.
I'm not a person who, takes to it occasionally. I read the stuff that comes out as, every day. And that's just the feeling that I have. His answer didn't go any way toward dissuading my feeling. And then on the UFM, so that authorization for the use of military force, Rally started with, it came at a very bad time when our military forces, it didn't really give us enough time to think, as if this AFUM had been in effect since 2003.
Right.
And as if all along this time people have been calling into question, number one, its constitutionality. I mean, does the Congress have the right to pass over to the president duties that are listed to it in the Constitution?
Also, we're always at war now. So if it's not the right time now, when is it ever going to be the right time?
Exactly. And why wasn't it the right time 6 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 2 years ago? Now it's going to be the right time.
Right.
Which is reminding me of a little quip I've come up with in this thinking of the things about him that annoy me. The other one has to do with this, bridging fuel, Mr. Bridge Fuel.
Oh, yeah.
Natural gas is the bridging fuel. It never says the bridge between what and what, and I've decided that it's the bridge between not yet and too late. You got a bridge there, right?
Right.
On this side of it, it's never the right time. Not yet. We can't cut this. No, we haven't got enough natural energy. We haven't got a system that will keep it coming consistently when the sun is not. Blah blah blah. All the reasons for not yet, not yet, not yet.
Right.
And someday we're going to go over the bridge and we're going to find out on the other side it was too late.
Too late. Yeah.
Too late. The damage is done.
Did you see that they just released a big report that said that methane leakage from natural gas is much more than anybody suspected previously?
I did.
Right.
And the previous was bad enough.
Yeah, right. But actually it's 40% worse than what we thought.
Yeah. So this, it's another kind of a chant, another kind of a canned phrase, and you just repeat it. It's going to be a bridge to disaster.
Right.
It's not anything else. It's disaster for the local people. It's disaster for the happiness and health of everybody in Burrowville. It's for the not happiness for the people in South Providence, for all those kids with asthma, all that. No, but it's going to save us. It's going to save us.
So this gets to him as an environmentalist, right? He gives those speeches every week on the floor. He's famous for giving, I think, 200 now. But what do you think about his environmental record? How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel as if he doesn't have a record. He has a record of talk,
right.
But he has a record of walking the walk. Okay, he approves legislation that sometimes that doesn't have anything to do with Rhode Islanders. But when we're in a pinch, then once again, it gives you that appearance of things are cooked up within the party, and Gina owes you, and you owe Gina, and you both owe the so-and-so and so-and-so. And if Gina says trust the process, you're going to adopt the trust the process line, which everybody knows that people are not trusting the process.
Yes,
And then you do things. Trust the process when I name the 3 people to the commission. Trust the process when I replace one person who leaves, Trust the process when people whose jobs in my administration, presumably, depend on my happiness with them to continue in those jobs,
Yep.
Why would we trust the process, And he doesn't stand up. He didn't stand up to that at all. The South Providence thing, I don't remember hearing anything from him about the South Providence thing, but
I know Cicilline just did something.
That's right.
I hear that there's, he's said in the past that it's a federal, or he said it's not a federal matter, it's a local matter, and he doesn't want to get involved in that. But Cicilline just recently did.
That's right.
And I know that congressmen and senators in other states have done so as well, gotten involved in local.
Right. And he is our senator.
Yes, he is.
Why do we have senators that represent states? Why don't we just elect the wisest, and this is a sarcasm on my part, of course. Why don't we just elect the wisest elders and set them to govern us? They are to be picked by the states. So, no, on that most recent one where I saw you there. No, excuse me. I was looking for you there and didn't find you on the hearing about the staffing of the Coastal Resources Management Board. No, again, he doesn't say anything. And let's take it. People look at White House and they see the same characteristics that they saw in those nominating people.
Right.
They live by the shore. They have a lot of money.
Yeah.
They send their kids to private schools.
Yep.
They're not us. They're not speaking for us, the people in South Providence feel. And I think most of us feel that way at various points. So, he would do himself a favor, it seems to me, if he showed himself once in a while not operating in that close synchronization with the people of the same class, of the same background, of the same universities, but would take the part of the ordinary people who elect him year after year. Well, not year after year, but term after term.
Term after term,
that
sure.
they go for him. You don't get the impression from White House that he is feeling what the grassroots feel. At least he doesn't communicate it.
So you think of him as sort of like the ruling elite, like the aristocracy?
That's right. Yes, a kind of an affable one.
Yeah,
like he's not icy,
nope.
He's not snooty, he's affable. But it's just as if he has no real idea that the rest of us exist. And no, I don't consider myself a failure, and I don't consider myself poor.
Right.
I mean, I consider that, I'm great. I made quite a good success of my life, certainly in terms of satisfaction and happiness, maybe in terms of monetary reward. But even with that kind of person, he doesn't seem to resonate. At least I can't find that resonation. And then he doesn't do it in the actions either. The environmental, was he out at the Poor People's Campaign? Does he?
No, not many people showed up for that. I didn't see one politician there.
You just don't see him. Now, this is not a resentment that I have been cultivating for a long time.
Right.
When I first came back to the States in 2004, now his election wasn't long after that, 2006. And in 2006, shortly thereafter, I went to his office and to Reed's office. I don't remember now what it was. I had bought a book. That I liked very, very much, and I thought, I'm going to buy copies of this book and bring it to all my congresspeople. And I did. I bought one to Reed, one to, I don't think it was Cicilline at the time, Langevin, and who was before Cicilline? Ken.
Yeah,
Ken. I brought it all. And when I went to White House's office, the gentleman took it from me, and then I said to him, by the way, you could communicate to Senator Whitehouse that I'm quite happy with the position he took about that ACORN group. You remember it?
I remember that, yes.
Okay, it wasn't a very right thing to do. This group had sent a couple in who complained untruthfully about some harsh circumstances of their lives, you remember? And this ACORN group helped them to get the benefit that they weren't really. Well, I mean, to my mind, this was not a very big, fault. You don't go to hell for sins like that, So I said to him, tell Senator Whitehouse I really supported him on that action. And the man was so overcome, wow, no one has come in here and said that. So I'm just telling that story to show that initially I liked Whitehead. I thought he was a decent guy. But then about 2012, I guess it was, I remember this as the turning point, sort of in my opinion of him. There was a dinner in a restaurant on Wickenden Street in Providence, and the Progressive Democrats were inside the restaurant at this dinner, and a group of us from Occupy Providence were on the street outside. Now, they were mostly the same people who were, advocating for the same things at various times, but we had come to loggerheads on that issue. And it was, again, that he had voted for some, I don't know if it was the Patriot Act or some updating of it or defining how FOIA requests would be done, but not FOIA, the court that decides whether you can tap someone. FISA courts, But at any rate, there I was out on the street with the other guys from Occupy and gals from Occupy Providence, and I thought to myself, I didn't think I'd be in this position when you got to Senator Whitehouse, but I was really disappointed that he had taken that stand on the surveillance as well. So those were the steps from kind of liking for White House and the kind of approval of it. That was really two in his terms. What I suspect happens is when you get to Washington, you just get told a new set of rules. Yeah. Did you ever hear the story about the interchange between Elizabeth Warren and Larry Summers?
No.
Well, apparently, right the first week or something of the Obama presidency, when Elizabeth Warren first got elected, they have some kind of an orientation session or a get-together for the new people who are entering Congress for the first time. And, of course, Larry Summers was already way down in my mind for his opinions about the lack of beauty of female mathematicians.
That's right,
I thought that was a pretty rotten low. And then I had found him quoted as having come out from one of these early meetings of the Obama administration and having said to someone, there's no grown-up in the room. Well, that tells you something.
Yeah.
You know, the grown-ups have a code, you see, to which we mere children do not have access. And that was so. Now, in the third instance of finishing me off with Larry Summers, the story was told in the press that Elizabeth Warren was telling how something like I'm doing. You know, I'm going to be honest and I'm going to tell the truth, and there's not going to be any back and dealing. And he said something to her like, "Well, if you want to play in the playpen, you won't get anything done." Steve,
I've heard that other places as well. Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's. Yeah,
right.
well, I'm glad you're corroborating it because I can't get the chapter and verse now.
Well, I mean, I've heard stories like that in other situations, right? I've heard it at the State House. I've heard it at the places. That if you're not willing to play the games, you're not willing to do what's necessary and make the compromise votes, you don't get anything happening, right? Basically, you're a lame duck for the entire time you're there. You can spend 6 years sitting in an office, twiddling your thumbs, and you'll be ineffective, and no one will work with you. You know, but if you have to kind of show you're as dirty as the rest in order to get ahead.
Well, I'm glad that you did hear it too. I did. I saw it in print. It was not something that I just got on the rumor mill. I saw it in print, you know, and yes, that's what seems to have happened to almost everybody. I mean, I think Elizabeth Warren is maybe among the less guilty, but even there, she does take positions that surprise me, and that I'm sure she takes under pressure, you know.
So that's interesting. All right, so like, what would a Senator Fonts look like when she goes to Washington, right? What would that be like?
You know, that's hard to think about, okay?
Yeah.
But the first thing I've thought about is, you know, I'm not going to go out and buy a wardrobe of $1,000 dresses, okay?
Right. Okay.
I'm not going to live long enough to wear any $1,000 dresses, and I simply will not assume that persona of being, yes, I suppose my new salary would permit me to buy a few $1,000 dresses, but I don't want to be or to be seen to be becoming a person that I'm not.
Right.
I'm a first-generation American. There are not too many. That's because my mom and dad came to the States when they were small children.
Right.
So technically, I'm a first-generation American, although they grew up here and they spoke perfect English and they had lots of advantages that other first-generation Americans don't have. But when I was a student at BU, when I was 16 or 17 years old, I won this full scholarship to go to school at BU. And there was a very well-known psychologist. He was one of those non-directive psychologist types, so the name's going to escape me at the moment. But he taught us a psychology class. And in this class, he was making the point that, you know, we were in college now, and we should declare our independence from our families, and we should reject all the values. This is back in the 50s.
Right.
This is not even the 60s. This is back in, but this was, you know, the psychological freedom. Well, I was a kind of a orthodox kid, a kid that didn't give a whole lot of problems, you know. And I remember saying to myself, no, I am who I am, and I have no desire to become some other person. I don't want to become an Anglo-Saxon.
Right.
I'm fine with the way I am. I wasn't a kid. I'm not recommending that to any young college student today or anything like it. But it just reminds me that I'm not dissatisfied with the person that I am, and I would love to bring the image of those people to Congress. I'd like to be, you know, someone who comes out of a meeting and doesn't say, you know, you can't talk about what happened. I would take some risks, I think, in telling things.
Sure.
Unless I knew that there was a way that was illegal.
Right.
You know, that's different.
Or people could get hurt.
Yes, exactly. Something like that, you know. But I would like to be a truth teller, person who says it like it is, who looks like the people I lived with and grew up with, who speaks like them. I remember once being told by some people, I had him as I was doing a research project at URI, and this guy was teaching there. He was teaching a class how to use your Rhode Island accent.
Huh.
Which he said was necessary. It was in the business school.
Right.
And you couldn't get ahead in business if you with your Rhode Island accent. This actually happens.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, when I heard it, what? Now, I did lose some of my Rhode Island accent when I was living in Ireland.
Sure.
But it happened over the course of 15 years. I didn't set out to reject my accent. So those are all things that they're image things, but I think they're important to giving people confidence. Number one, confidence that I'm representing them in Congress. And most of all, confidence to people coming up in the next generation that they can do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm one person and I'll probably lose, but I hope that people can see that it's possible for an ordinary kid from I call it a working class background. Yes, my dad had a tiny, small business, which he lost in the Depression, and went on to work for the man who bought it from him. He worked and took orders from the man who bought the business from him. So
that's a strong man.
That's a strong man. That's what I say. My father, I have infinite admiration for him, and he went on and did that. And so I would like to be a model for people from those groups that say, kid from East Providence, nothing special. Always went to public school. Only got to go to away to school because I won scholarships to it. Back in the days, of course. Do you know what my full tuition scholarship for 4 years at Boston University was?
No.
$960.
I was gonna think it was something terrible. I think.
Yeah, it would make you cry.
I know, because my kids are all in college right now. They're not spending $960.
$960.
They might spend $960 a year on books. Exactly. Yeah. So
exactly. But I mean, that would be my goal. On the other hand, I'm not going to underplay my intelligence. I won those scholarships because I was good. I was a good student. Yeah, maybe I was too serious. I was bookish. Yes, I used to hit the books and that kind of stuff. But I knew that if I didn't get the scholarship, that I would have to go to school in Providence. Not that I had anything against it, but I just wanted that adventure of widening, of going away and living away, and that to me it had come out of a Nancy Drew book. You know Nancy Drew. Girls loved it in those days. The Girl Detective, and one of the numbers was about when she went away to college and lived in a dormitory, and that's what I did. So I'm not underrating my intelligence. I think I can get into Congress, and with all those aides that you have.
Yes.
To read the things.
And people help you, right? There's a whole staff that goes with you. Right?
I may stumble during the campaign and not be able to cite a fact to back up something that I feel, think, or have judged, but that can happen to anybody. I'm living an ordinary life and I have other things to do besides, like being in the street for all those protests and things like that. So, but I have perfect confidence that if you have a staff of people who are bringing things to you, you'll be able to comprehend them and put them in a context. And I'm not against judging with other people, meeting with other people, hearing them, hearing their opinion. You go to Congress and the people are making speeches to an empty room. Right.
I think you're right, because I think there's this thing I meet people all the time who might want to not even run for Senate, might want to run for state Senate or state rep or even whatever, like a city hall, and they act like they have to be geniuses or they have to be like the smartest people in the world to run for these positions. I'm like, if you really got to know politicians, you would realize really quickly they're not really brighter than you. They're not really smarter than you in any way. They're just they're just ordinary people like you. They just have they just have the confidence in their skill set, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be an arrogance, that kind of confidence, but just a confidence that, hey, if you made it this far, if you did the things you did. As far as academic life, I put much, much more value, to tell you the truth, on my ability, which I didn't even know I had, and I think I developed in the context, to go to live in 2 different countries, to learn the ropes, to make friends, to make a place in the career structure where people admire you, to get, like it has happened in Portugal, I was elected to be the head of a research center. A research center representation at the national level. I mean, it's those kinds of capacity too that I was a shy kid in high school. I was shy. Even in college, I was really, not an outward going person. But as you accumulate life experience and I learned more from those experiences. I developed more as a person than I did by getting A's all the way through high school or getting a 3.89 or whatever it was that I graduated college with, So people who've been interacting with other people know how to listen, who aren't closed in their ways. Steve, when I was living in Ireland, a lot of my nephews and nieces, because they were under 12 and the airfare to Dublin at the time was something like $150 under 12, they all came to spend 5 weeks with me. School in Dublin and the school the university I was in was associated with this school, something like Henry Barnard would be at URI. So they went to school and all that. And I told their parents, my goal is, when they come and they say to me, why do they cross on the wrong side of the street? I would say, they cross on the other side of the street. It's not wrong. And why do they eat with the wrong fork, No. There's not a wrong fork. They eat with the other fork, And I needed a passion with each kid who came, to carry that on. If they went back home, I didn't care if they remembered the museums, I didn't care if they remembered, but I wanted them to remember that there's more than one way of doing things.
There's another world.
That there's another world, that eating with that fork in your right hand is not the be-all and the end-all, It's equally important that you learn to look right when
so you don't get killed.
that you don't get killed.
So you live.
And then when their visit was over, I would get the next child there a week before the first child went home, and I would say to them, in that week you have to teach them all those things I taught you.
Nice.
Teach them how to cross the street, teach them how to use the money, and even today they still talk about it. Listen,
that's amazing.
So that, if I could do something in the way of encouraging international exchange, at a much more universal level, it shouldn't only be college gurus and the most privileged universities that get these experiences.
I think that's what we're missing when we talk about education now. We talk about preparing kids for factory work or construction or whatever, or it's STEM, right? They talk about science, technology, engineering, but I think to myself, what about broadening our perspectives with the kind of, when you go to a career technical school, they don't send you to Quebec for a week. You know what I mean? They don't send you, that you're expected to, I don't know, broaden yourself by watching TV at home, I guess. I don't know what it is, and it doesn't seem possible, right?
No, I learned an old Irish custom when I lived there, that apparently when Ireland was not unified, but there were all those little tribes, with the kings here and the kings there, and then the high king in the middle and all that it was the custom among them that you had to send your oldest son to live with another.
Oh, interesting.
With another kingdom, in another kingdom. And he sent his somewhere else.
Just so you would learn.
So, not only that you would learn, you don't go bomb the town that your son is living in, right?
I guess that's true, right?
You don't get all your arms and go pillaging against that tribe's territory. So it was that wonderful mixture of having your own interest at heart, and yes, he learned the ways of thinking, the ways of behaving of that other tribe, and I would love to see that spread much more universally than it is now. I mean, once again, if we taught kids, if we spend some money doing that instead of teaching kids to be soldiers, you know that we haven't signed that United Nations Treaty on the Rights of the Child. I understand that the main sticking point is that you're not allowed to recruit for the military under 18.
That doesn't surprise me, but I didn't know that.
That's what I read. I read it. That in other words, we want that right to go into the high schools and stop picking kids when they're in the 9th or 10th grade to start going to military training, and that would be. Of course, I think we also have an objection to things like food be considered a right, water being considered a right. All those things are written in the rights. But I understand that that's the sticking point, and I think that is really, really terrible. Because to get the young people to realize that they're just like us. What's his name? name said it. Skylark said it in Shakespeare. Do I not bleed? Like,
Yes.
do I not cry salt tears? Like, do I? They find out. And I get the great pleasure. I have a nephew out in Minnesota. I just took his 3 children on trips to 3 different countries in Europe. And when I asked him what he liked to do, and he said, "Pat, you changed my life when I was 10 years old by what you did for me. And if you'll take those kids." We could only do that for people to discover the common humanity of everybody.
That's a hard sell. For some reason, that's a hard thing to teach people. But yeah, absolutely.